Hello everyone, welcome back. In the past few years, I think we have all noticed the rise of conspiracy theories like anti-vaxxers, flat earthers, or QAnon. And all of these conspiracy theories and the people who believe in them seem related somehow to recent political movements like the Donald Trump supporters in the United States or the Brexit supporters in the United Kingdom. And those political movements seem somehow aligned to other authoritarian movements in other countries like Hungary, Poland, Russia, and to an extent even Japan. I've been wanting to make a video about this topic for a while, but I didn't because I didn't have anything to say other than the normal criticism that all of these movements get all the time and for good reason. But finally, I think I have something to say. I think I have an insight as to what makes these movements similar and what fuels them. And that's what the next few videos are going to be about. But first, we have to start with a movement that you guys have probably not heard of. And they have different names in different places. In the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and other countries of the Commonwealth of Nations, they call themselves free men of the land. In Germany and Austria, they call themselves the Reichsbürgers. And in the United States, they call themselves sovereign citizens. In this video, I'm going to be talking mostly about the sovereign citizens because that's the branch of the movement that is the largest and there is the most information about them. But keep in mind that while the specifics might be different, in general, all of these movements are the same and they are very similar in an ideological level. It all began when I saw this video on YouTube. What is language fraud? At first I thought it would be like a lawyer explaining maybe some obscure legal standard or something, but no, what I found was complete and utter absurdity.
Just the use of pronouns violates contract law. Another vowel followed by two consonants, and that cancels out the word. Now, the word ly, I beg your pardon, can be used as a past tense, a present tense as well as a future tense. Organization, well, it's a vowel followed by two consonants, which essentially means there's no organization at all.
And I was just fascinated. I had to understand what was going on. Like, why was this guy saying such nonsense with such confidence? And well, turns out that he was a sovereign citizen. It took me a while, but I finally understand what sovereign citizens believe. It is basically a bureaucratic mythology. They believe that at some point in the past, the government of the United States was abolished in secret. And they will tell you things like the United States is legally a huge postal office, or that legally the United States is actually an admiralty court, or things like that. This is like their creation myth, and there are two versions of it, the racist one and the non-racist one. Let's start with the non-racist one, and it is all about the gold standard. It used to be that you could take your money to a bank and change it for some amount of gold, and that's what gave money its value. But then, after World War II, countries realized that that wasn't necessary, and they started taking their currencies off the gold standard. But sovereign citizens believe that the gold standard was not abolished. They believe that it was replaced. They believe that when a person is born and they get a birth certificate, what is actually happening is that the government is creating a corporation that owns that person. And the value of that corporation is whatever that person will produce during their lifetime. And the name of that corporation is the same as the name of that person, but in capital letters. This might seem like a very small detail, but it's actually one of their core principles, and we will come back to it after we explain the racist version of their creation myth. And it is all about the 14th Amendment. After the Civil War, the United States had to make a lot of changes to its constitution, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. The 14th Amendment specified who was a citizen of the United States, but sovereign citizens believe that in fact the 14th Amendment created two kinds of citizens. Before, everyone who was free was a state citizen, and they were truly free and truly citizens. But after the 14th Amendment, it turned everyone into US citizens. And US citizens are slaves without knowing, and the government creates corporations that own them, and the name of the corporation is the name of the person, but in capital letters, and they are the same from that point on. And this is when sovereign citizens started looking like a religion to me, because all religions propose a problem and offer a solution. For example, Buddhism proposes the problem of the eternal suffering of the cycle of death and rebirth, and offers the solution of enlightenment and nirvana. Christianity and Islam propose the problem of sin and the punishment of God, and they offer the solution of salvation. Sovereign citizens propose the problem that you are a slave without you knowing, and it offers the possibility of becoming truly free, of becoming a sovereign citizen. The way to do this, they believe, is that you have to basically use the rules of this fake government against itself. That you can become the owner of the corporation that owns you. And when you do that, you become truly free. And they claim that maybe even the government will send you the money that that corporation was worth. So you could even become a millionaire. But how do you become a sovereign citizen? How do you become the owner of the corporation that owns you? Well, turns out that there are many gurus in the internet, people that claim to have done this process and become free. And they give seminaries and they have courses and they will gladly take your money to give you classes on how to do this process. And it is like a bureaucratic ritual. The whole thing is very religious because they will tell you that you need to get certain forms of the government and that you need to fill them in very specific ways, taking a lot of care of the capitalization of the letters. Some things need to be in red ink, and some gurus will tell you that it needs to be written specifically in your blood. And the whole thing sounds like a religious ritual or maybe a magic spell. But if you do it correctly, you should become a free sovereign citizen. And at this point I was wondering, what does it mean for these people to be free? I mean, what can they do after they do this bureaucratic spell that they couldn't do before? And the answer is very simple, and in fact it explains everything. It's just taxes. It's all about taxes. You see, sovereign citizens believe that people have to follow laws and pay taxes because they are not free. They are slaves owned by corporations that are owned by the government. But when you become the owner of yourself, you don't have to do any of those things. You don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to follow laws, you don't have to pay any tickets the police give you, because you are truly free. In fact, sovereign citizens end up in court a lot, and it is always because of tax evasion. And when they are in front of a judge, they come prepared with statements that reference their conspiracy theories and their beliefs to try to explain to the judge why they are not subject to the judge's authority. And of course it never works, but of course they keep believing it. But why do people believe any of this at all? Well, of course, there are many reasons, and every person is different, and I cannot give you one definitely absolute reason, but I can tell you some of the factors. I think that maybe it is very exciting, like if you are walking down the street and you believe you are free, that you know the truth about how the government is fake, and you look at all of those people and they don't know they are not free, and they think that the government is real, like it should feel very exciting. For the people who believe the racist version of this conspiracy theory, there's an angle of superiority here, because they believe that only white people can become state citizens and become truly sovereign and free. But one of the main reasons is clearly taxes. That's why sovereign citizens end up in court the most. And I think it's all about responsibility. Because if you try hard enough you can avoid pretty much all responsibilities in your life. I mean, if you want to abandon your family and get a new life, you can do that. There are plenty of stories of people that have done that, and yet the government will still find ways to tax you. As the saying goes, nothing is unavoidable in life except death and taxes. So, if you manage to avoid taxes, you have beaten society in a way. And it is actually possible. I mean, Amazon, that is one of the richest companies in the world, has paid zero taxes for several years. But if you are not a billionaire and you want to avoid taxes, your best option is just to buy into a crazy pseudo religion conspiracy theory. But that's not all of it, because like if you want to avoid responsibilities and you want to avoid taxes and you are not Jeff Bezos, you can just go become a hermit. You can just go live in the countryside away from everyone, and I promise no one will bother you. No one will come to tax you. You can just live your life by your own and it will be fine. But no, these people want to get all the benefits from society and not get any of the responsibilities. They want to have their children in good schools, they want to use the roads, they want to be able to go to hospitals. If their house is burning down, they want the firefighters to come help them. They just don't want to pay taxes for any of that. And I honestly get it. If you don't like the education system, if you don't like the healthcare system, if you think that police are corrupt, if you think that society and the government are corrupt or they are wrong somehow, then paying taxes feels like contributing to a broken system. But of course, their solution is to just run away from it. Or even worse, to keep living on that broken system without even trying to change it. Sovereign citizens often make reference as to how no one asked them if they wanted to be part of the society, if they wanted to live in that country. And they are right. No one asked us if we wanted to be citizens of a certain nation. No one asked us if we wanted to accept the social contract. In some level, those things were imposed on us. But I think that trying to improve those systems, to improve the world we had no option but to accept, is way better than simply rejecting it. Because that only makes it worse, really. But there is one last aspect of sovereign citizens I need to talk to you about. You and I know that countries are not really real. Like, I cannot go to a lab and get 50 milligrams of United States, and I cannot see liberty under a microscope. I cannot find atoms of justice. All of those things, countries, nations, law, principle, ideals, they were all just made up by us, by people, and they just exist because we agree that they exist, right? You and I know that. But sovereign citizens seem to believe that all of these things are real in a way that most people do not. Because imagine if they were right about everything and you send your paperwork to become owner of the corporation that owns you. They believe that the government employee that saw that paperwork would be like, oh, well, I guess we have to give this person $2 million and they don't need to follow any laws now. But of course, that wouldn't happen. Even if they were right about everything, that government employee would be just like, well, I guess I need to destroy this paperwork and it never happened and that's it. Same with judges. They believe that if they stand in front of a judge and they just say the magic words, the judge has to be like, oh, well, I guess I have to let you go. But even if they were right about everything, even if the judge heard those words and realized that this person knows the real truth, they would be like, well, I can just find this person in contempt of court and get rid of them. They believe that laws are so real that even if you use those laws against the people who secretly control the government, they would still obey those laws. But of course they wouldn't. And it's just, that's the thing that makes me feel that sovereign citizens are like a religion. Because they believe that law is like magic. They believe that the 14th Amendment or the abandonment of the gold standard was like a magic spell, a curse that affected everyone in the United States. And I just find that fascinating. Now, I've been talking about the United States for a while, but remember that these people exist in many different countries. For example, the freemen of the land believed that when the Commonwealth of Nations was created, that somehow created these two kinds of citizens, and you can become a freeman of the land, and then you don't have to pay any taxes. And in the case of Germany, they believed that the Weimar Republic was never truly abolished, and that you can become a citizen of that nation that doesn't really exist, but like legally it exists. It's kind of confusing. But the point is that you don't need to pay taxes. As I told you at the beginning, the specifics might be different, but the end result is always that you don't have to pay taxes. And now that we understand sovereign citizens, we can look at all of the movements I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and we can start looking at them in a new light, and it becomes easier to understand why they believe what they believe. But that's gonna be in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you want to watch the next video in this series, please subscribe and give a like. And you should know that I get very interested in a certain topic and then I make several videos about it. So I recommend that you go and check the playlist on the channel to see if some of the topics I've covered are interesting for you. Because this is not a channel about one singular topic. Like, it's just about whatever I'm interested at the time. And so yeah, thanks for watching again.